city of Benghazi hours earlier were visibly shaken.
Our construction site was ransacked by local people on Saturday night at about 3:15 in the morning. We were all ready for a situation like this. Everybody was sleeping in their daytime clothes.
A short while later, men, women and children on the Mercy flight are back on home soil. But many more remain in Benghazi. One witness has told journalists that thousands of Turks are taking refuge in a football stadium, waiting to be evacuated. Emiko Molu, AlJazeera.
Now, the U.S. government, meanwhile, has given its strongest criticism yet of the government crackdown in Libya. The statement by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton came at the end of a day in which a number of high-ranking Libyan officials in America resigned or broke links with the regime. Patty Colhane has more.
Unacceptable bloodshed. That is how U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton describes these scenes in a statement issued late Monday, urging the Libyan government to show restraint. Sunday, the U.S. apparently thought it had a promise to do just that, issuing a statement saying, quote, Libyan officials have stated their commitment to protecting and safeguarding the right of peaceful protest. But as the violence escalated, the U.S. responded with this message to Americans in Libya, announcing non-essential embassy staff were leaving, and if Americans chose to stay, they should make preparations to shelter in place. Monday was a national holiday in the U.S., celebrating America's presidents, but the current one stayed out of sight. On Friday, Mr. Obama put out a statement calling for restraint in Bahrain, Libya, and Yemen. But in Bahrain and in Yemen, he has personally made calls to those leaders. So far, that hasn't happened with Libya.
The United States and Libya still have a strained relationship. It's at best a strained relationship. And so we really have no influence on these people, or next to no influence.
After decades of open hostilities, relations between the U.S. and Libya normalized during the last administration. But it's still tense. That was made clear during this Sunday interview with Republican Senator Lindsey Graham.
I think we should have a policy of urging old friends to do better and replacing old enemies. So I'd like to see regime change in Libya.
If the president agrees or doesn't, he is insane. Patty Colhane, AlJazeera, Washington.
And news just coming into us now that the oil company Shell has said that all its expat employees in Libya and their dependents have now left the country and have been relocated. Of course, the violence has pushed oil prices higher than they've been in the last 2 years since the financial crisis. Now Shell saying that all its employees and their families have been relocated from Libya. Now, talk more about the international reaction, and it comes as cracks also appear to be showing in the Gaddafi regime. A number of Libyan diplomats have resigned, as we mentioned, including ambassadors to the Arab League and India, as well as 4 diplomats in China. Libya's Justice Minister Mustafa Abdul Jalil has already quit over the use of deadly force against protesters. 2 senior Libyan Air Force officers have defected to Malta after reportedly being ordered to bomb protesters. Now, with us now in the studio is Yusuf Wandel. He is a professor of international affairs at Qatar University. Thank you very much for your time. You know, a lot has happened in the last 24 hours. Gaddafi is facing condemnation not just from the international community, but also from members of his own government and diplomats, his own diplomats. Do you think that this has now become, what, an existential fight for Gaddafi? Is he fighting for survival?
Yeah, he is. What has been happening over the last 24 hours was simply unthinkable some 3 weeks ago. And the cracks are showing up, and very quickly over the last 24 hours, and especially, like you said a few minutes ago, international employees of Shell and expats are leaving the country. Obviously, they must have received information or advice from their own governments to leave the country, because the situation is untenable at the moment.
The regime is also fighting on multiple fronts now, it seems, trying to put down the protests and also fighting, from what we hear, a battle against a growing number of army units who are refusing to shoot protesters and who are rising up against Muammar Gaddafi. So What do you make of that? Does this mean that the army is no longer loyal to the Gaddafi regime?
Well, sections of the army must be loyal to Gaddafi regime, given his two sons, especially Mu'tasim and Khamis, who control some of the militia. But obviously, no human being or no soldier would like to see his or her own people being killed. And we should also mention that the defense minister of Libya is under house arrest. So all these show that Gaddafi's days in office are numbered.
You say his days in office are numbered, but yet he has survived a coup before, back in 2003, I believe. Do you think that it's different this time? Do you think that he can possibly survive the current upheaval? And if he does, what's likely to happen?
Well, he survived the coup and also so many assassination attempts.
Indeed.
And obviously there were separate incidents, but I don't think that he can survive what has been going on at the moment, because given the level of defections from his own people and also the pictures that we have been seeing on the international news, so many people being killed, and so, even some people from his own diplomatic corps are calling it genocide, something quite big.
Quite a strong word.
Very, very
well,
strong.
as you know, the UN Security Council is expected to hold a meeting, an emergency meeting later today on Libya, as well as the Arab League, of course. Now, beyond the strong words and the condemnations, what can they really do for this regime? What sort of pressure can they have on this regime?
I think that the Arab League is powerless. It will not do anything except condemnation. And as far as I know, no Arab country except the state of Qatar has made a strong statement, because so many countries in the Arab world, as we speak, are facing problems of their own. The Security Council is quite another dimension. It may come up with some strong condemnation to the Gaddafi regime and may take some actions, as what happened in Iraq in the early 90s. Lord Owen was right in saying that the imposition of some non-fly zone may be a best option.
You think that would be effective?
I'm not sure if it will be effective, but it is another option. At least make sure that civilians are not being bombarded from the air.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Yusuf Bondwell, Professor of International Affairs at Qatar University, in the studio with us as we talk about the situation in Libya. Now, there's also been rallies and demonstrations in several U.S. cities to show solidarity with the protesters in Libya. Rob Reynolds attended one in Los Angeles, California, and sent us this report.
Down with Gaddafi! Down with Gaddafi!
Libyans and Libyan Americans in Los Angeles demonstrated in solidarity with the anti-government uprising in their homeland. They chanted, waved flags, and held signs denouncing Libyan ruler Colonel Muammar Gaddafi.
We want to see the end of Gaddafi. He's been in power for 42 years. It's enough. He's killing our people.
He has to realize what damage he done all these years to the country that we loved.
Libyans here say watching the violent attacks by security forces on protesters back home has made them fearful for the lives of their friends and family.
I'm terrified. We're all sick with worry. Most of us haven't slept since Tuesday.
1, 2, 3, 4, Gaddafi!
The protesters say U.S. President Barack Obama should speak out forcefully against Gaddafi.
He's always talking about freedom, justice, everything. Right now, he just saw the Libyan kills everywhere, and he did nothing.
Despite their fear and anger, Libyans here seem confident that a better Libya will emerge from the bloodshed.
Libyans want democracy. Arabs want democracy. The whole world wants democracy.